Calvinism is the name usually given to the theology that grows out of John Calvin and the wider Reformed tradition. At the most basic level, it is a way of thinking about God, salvation, scripture, church, and the Christian life that puts a very heavy stress on the sovereignty of God. That is usually the bit people know, the predestination and the election, and the idea that salvation does not finally rest on human initiative, on cleverness or spiritual self-starting, but the prior mercy and purpose of God. And yes, of course, that is central, but Calvinism is bigger than one doctrine. It is not only a machine for arguing about who is elect. Historically, it is a whole Protestant world. It's a way of reading the Bible, a way of structuring worship, a way of speaking about grace, covenant, discipline, sacraments, and the shape of the church. Calvin himself agreed with Luther on justification by faith and the authority of Scripture, but the Reformed tradition developed with its own tone and emphases. You can hear it in its seriousness. It's confident that God is not reacting nervously to history. Its refusal to make salvation sound like a joint venture in which God does his part and then waits anxiously for us to finish the work. Its insistence that grace is not weak. It says that grace saves, grace keeps, and grace brings the believer home. Now, that has given Calvinism enormous power because it can produce confidence, steadiness, intellectual depth, and a very strong doctrine of God. It can make Christianity feel less like religious mood and more like reality rooted in God's divine action. But it also has its dangers. If badly handled, it can become hard, over-systematic, and emotionally cold. It can make people sound as though they understand the secret architecture of heaven and can therefore sort the living and the dead with unnerving ease. But that is not a necessary result of Calvinism, but it is a recurring temptation. It is also worth saying that Calvinism is not confined to one denominational box. It appears in Reformed and Presbyterian churches most obviously, but it also runs through parts of Baptist life and Anglican evangelicalism, Congregationalism, Puritanism, and later evangelical movements. So Calvinism travels, and wherever it travels, it usually brings certain instincts with it. It has a large view of God, a strong confidence in the scripture, a serious account of sin, and a stubborn belief that salvation belongs to the Lord. So Calvinism was and is a major stream of Protestant theology shaped by John Calvin and the wider Reformed tradition, marked above all by its stress on the sovereignty of God in salvation and in the whole Christian life. It is not only a doctrine of predestination, it is a full theological system. It's sometimes bracing, sometimes severe, often powerful, but it is also impossible to understand if we reduce it to the slogan and stop at that.